Evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock. We'll start the meeting on time here. It's going to be a long one tonight. So I think we should get started as soon as possible. Shane, you want to take over? I made you co-host.
You're muted, Shane.
Hear me now?
Yeah, you're not muted, but you came across kind of strange. Say something.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
A lot of reverb. Maybe it's just me.
No.
Yeah. Sound like you're a robot, Shane. Now you're muted.
What?
After all these years of pandemic, you think we'd know how to use a Zoom session?
Can you hear me now?
It'll have to do.
So David, you want to just give an update on the public safety? You're going to present the GMP?
Yep. Do you want to share do you have the most updated version or not?
I'm going to jump off and jump back on and see if that changes. Do you have it?
I can share it. Yep.
Oh, you need to be co-host, Dave?
Yeah, if you don't mind, just to help Shane out for a minute.
Appreciate that.
Might not be the cleanest here, but
There you go.
all set.
Yep.
Let's see. All right, you guys all able to see this? I know it's not full screen, but can you see that buyout summary?
Hasn't come up yet, but it looks like it's coming up.
It says it's starting.
Just let me know when.
Yeah, I don't think it's working.
Try it one more time.
I'm about to make the same comment to you, David.
This is this antiquated Zoom thing.
Yeah.
We
You must be a
moved up
WebEx
to
guy.
Teams and stuff. now.
Teams. Yeah.
Let me see.
Well, folks, those are 3 minutes you'll never get back the rest of your life.
Oh, here we
No,
go.
we got it. We got it.
Got it? All right, good. So overall, I can tell you that we're doing fairly well on the buyout, with probably the one exception being HVAC, and we can talk about that as we run through real quick. I'll just breeze through it pretty quick, and if you guys have any questions, we can go back and hit it. Where I would say we're 98% bought out at this point. Demo, concrete, masonry, structural steel, rough carpentry, we're going to self-perform. Millwork, waterproofing was a filed sub, roofing is a filed sub. This stuff is all behind us. The only thing we haven't completely bought out yet is scrolling down specialties. We're just fine tuning the final numbers with our apparent low, and that includes window treatments. I think, Dario, that's all we have, right?
Correct. And then finalizing landscape as well.
Oh yeah, in landscape, sorry. But so overall, there it is. The bottom line right now, we're looking at about a $59,000 overrun on what we projected for our buyout. And of that 59, 46 of that is the NB Kenny issue. As you guys will recall, we had predicted at GMP time a VE list that you didn't accept all those items. So we carried that $46,000 overrun, hoping we were going to make it go away with the rest of the buyouts. That didn't pan out. I think at this point, we're probably going to end up right about at that 59 number. And I'm comfortable carrying through my contingency for now. I would just ask that when we get to the end, and if it's really tight, just remember me.
What's your name again? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Who do you work for?
I think we'll be okay. So
Okay.
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think that's going to be pretty much where we land. And, for all the major stuff is behind us, and Dario's cranking up shop drawings to the design team, and we'll be off and running.
So David, you're counting about 315 right now, is it 305?
365 we currently have in contingency with one of
But
those.
you need to take the 60 out of that, or is that?
Exactly, yeah, the 60 is going to come out of that. So
So the actual number is 305.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, is there any questions? When do we start?
March 21st.
So we did have a walkthrough. Was it on Monday morning? Monday we were up there ourselves, the police and fire department, and bond walked through to just sort of take a look one more time what we have to do to get started. So we're ready. We've started, as Dave said, we've started the submittal process, and I think we're going to the construction team is going to meet to review submittals every other week, and when we come to March, we'll start weekly construction meetings. But we are doing construction admin right now. Construction will start in March.
Right. Any questions? Chief Scory, anything?
No,
Oh, Chip?
yeah, so I have a question. I mean, usually when we start construction meetings, we start with a small construction group from this group as well at those construction meetings, so we're well aware of what's going on. How are we handling that through this project?
We're going to do what we've done in the past.
But they're already having construction meetings and we haven't been there.
Well, we're just having we're reviewing submittals, Chip. We're not doing construction meetings. They're going to start in March, the actual on-site construction meetings.
But we need to be there when you're starting to talk about what it's going to take to get started and all those conversations, so that we're aware of what's going on. So if you're starting to have those conversations about phasing and starting and when you're going to put fences up in the yard and all that stuff, it can't be done we need to get our group involved as well. Not involved, but just to be at those same meetings so we understand what's going on. Or at least we have been in the past.
At least a couple designated people, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. If you guys let me know, I think we're going to meet again on Tuesday week. A week from Tuesday. So let me know when we can get those folks on the meeting invite.
Yeah, I'm showing it as Tuesday, the 25th at 2:00.
What time there?
2:00.
That two?
Yep,
Is
2 p.m.
Virtual?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So for the permanent building committee members, I'll ask if anyone wishes to volunteer to work in the working group to begin with. And so just send me an email and then I'll figure out what would be the best. Are they going to be, the meetings are obviously they're going to be virtual, I assume, Dario, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And there'll be afternoons until we actually get on site. And then for the sake of our superintendent, they're going to move to early mornings.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions, anybody? So members of the permanent building committee, just send me an email and if you wish to volunteer to be on the working group, and we'll see the mad rush of emails. Any way to spend time with Dave is, everyone wants to do that. Any other questions or comments?
Joe, Dave wouldn't feel it right if I wasn't there.
I would expect you to be there, Chip. I'd feel slighted if you weren't.
Any other questions or comments? All right, are we done with the public safety?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care. Now we are going into the high school. Shane, you want to take over on the agenda on this?
Sure. Yes. So I think Esma and I are going to present.
That's right. If I could get sharing privileges.
Yeah, we
Helen will also have a piece.
We're going to talk about the existing conditions, and then we're going to start looking at that evaluation criteria that was sent out this afternoon. So I'll hand it over to Brian.
Who needs to be co-host?
Myself and Helen Fantini.
Brian Black, Joe,
Thank
and
you.
then Ellen.
Okay, there you are.
Hiding in the grid.
You should be good to go, Brian.
Ellen, right?
Yes.
And please tell me I'm sharing the correct screen here. Are you seeing a
Yes.
first slide full screen?
Yes. Thank you, Brian.
Great.
Okay.
And Helen, did you want to go through the agenda?
Sure, you want to go to the next slide? So we know we have provided the committee with a lot of information just today. So we do have our final reports or near final reports on some of the existing conditions, and this was the time to update you on those. So I have Aaron Castillo, our civil engineer, with us tonight, and Stephen Siragusa from GM2, our traffic engineer, to kind of walk you through some of those results of some of those reports. Then we'll move into the alternatives review, the criteria. Shane will talk about the cost information that you've received, and then we'll walk through the evaluation of the options. So I think I will hand it over to Aaron.
Thank you. I plan to be brief in updating you on our work. Certainly happy to answer any questions after the fact. So I'm going to start with the phase 1 site assessment that was completed back in November. It was completed to investigate potential presence of oil or other hazardous materials on the site, and essentially concluded that there was further investigation needed, required to locate some underground storage tanks that may or may not be in and around the boiler. And that also may be required some subsurface explorations if possible to determine if there were any releases of oil into the environment. Wetland flagging was completed in October and December. You can see on the image that the wetlands are in green and the 100-foot buffer zone is in yellow. Completed in October and December. In and around the project site, we have identified various wetland resources as shown. Geotechnical investigations, 17 geoprobes were performed, and they're shown in blue on the plan back in November. 10 were completed to 20 feet. What we found is various materials, including topsoil, buried organics, and refusal, fill, and native material. Refusal was encountered anywhere from 1.5 feet to 17 or 18 feet. As you can see, surveys in progress. We do expect a final draft to be included with our submission. That draft is expected by Friday next week. And we do also have an existing conditions traffic analysis. I'm going to turn it over now to Stephen so he can review with you what him and his team found.
Thanks, Aaron. So as Aaron said, we put together an existing traffic conditions study. As part of that, we collected data all along Farm Street, as you can see from Water Street all the way down to Nahant Street and any and all intersections and driveways in between. So we collected that data November 16th and November 18th, made sure that schools were obviously in session so that we got an accurate representation. We also were out there doing some observations as well. So we included vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles. So we really encompassed a multimodal data collection to make sure that we know, where students are crossing, where vehicles are entering, exiting, where the problems are, things like that. We found that there's approximately 12,800 vehicles a day along Farm Street and about 2,600 vehicles per day along Hemlock Road. Which is a lot, considering Hemlock Road is just a connector between Farm Street and Northeast Metro Tech. So a decent amount of traffic that enters and exits just at that intersection along at Nahant Street and Farm Street and Hemlock. So the peak backups were along the roadways between 7:15 a.m. and 7:35 a.m. And 2:05 p.m. and 2:20 p.m., which coincide pretty much with when school starts and ends, which is really no surprise there. The biggest issue is at Nahant and Hemlock. There's a huge backup where people try to come off Nahant Street and then make an immediate left onto Hemlock, whether that's students, faculty, buses, students or faculty of NEMT. But that is the biggest issue at the moment when it comes to vehicles. If you can go to the next slide, please. And another part of that was we did a parking inventory, which we thought was hugely important, just to understand how many parking spaces are on site, what that utilization looks like, what those parking spaces are assigned to, if they're assigned at all. So right now, in those 5 parking areas that we have outlined in red, and then the flow patterns are in blue, but there are 403 total parking spaces in those 5 areas, broken down, as you can see, various unmarked or staff, reserved, handicap, visitor, WCAT spaces. So we collected that data between 8:30 and 9 a.m. on November 17th, which is again after making sure is after school started, that we would encompass at least when most staff and students would be on site. And we found that there's a utilization rate of about 74%. So 298 vehicles parked, 105 vacant spaces. And again, it's very important to know what this is like moving forward, where how many parking spaces may be proposed and or are needed. So again, more than happy to answer any questions. I'll turn it back over to, I would assume, Erin.
Are there any questions about anything that we've gone over very, very briefly?
Real
I
quick,
have
Phil Renzi, you didn't by chance count how many cars were parked along this main street during school, did you?
Along Farm Street, you mean?
Yeah.
We did not. From our observations, though, there weren't too many. From the day that we were out there on the 17th, I don't think that there were more than 5 from my recollection, if we're being honest. I did not count.
Okay, I was just curious. Yeah, that makes sense.
That seems pretty light, though. Usually when school's in session, there's a lot of traffic on that road from a parking perspective. So 5 seems way light.
And again, it could be, that we were only out there in the morning. So you could be correct that during the day that, at 12 or even 10, that there are more vehicles out there.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter goes to the school, so on a morning, and she has a car, so I know where she parks. There's at least, I'd say, 30 to 50 cars parked up and down Farm Street when school is in session during the day.
Okay.
So,
and I know that there's also vehicles parked along Hemlock Road too, right by the by the field as well.
Yes, by the baseball field. Yep.
Yep.
And by the tennis courts.
Did you get any information on how the spaces, even though they're unmarked spaces, are allowed to be parked in? Because I find it curious that there were 105 vacant spaces, yet we still had cars on Hemlock Road and on Farm Street.
We did not. You mean in terms of what those vacant spaces are marked for or not marked for?
Right. So I'm curious from a school standpoint, whether you found out from the school, who's allowed to drive, how many students potentially could be driving, why on 11/17 might there be 105 unused spaces?
We don't have that information currently from the school. I'm sure, Erin, we may be able to get that from them as to, again, who's allowed, or when it comes to juniors or seniors, or what that might look like.
Exactly. We need to understand what the driving specs are, if you may.
It may not be a question of who's allowed. I don't know that there's any restrictions, but there is a lot of kids in quarantine at the moment, and there has been. So I suspect just the occupation of the school during the count period is likely to be lower. So if there's an attendance record possibly for that date, that might explain some of the vacancy.
Great, thank you. I think we need to do some more investigation on how accurate the data from 11/17 is. I mean, I know that data is accurate. How typically reflective is that?
Chip, I wonder, like, in the field across from the football field, there's 82 spaces. Like, I don't have kids that go to the high school, but I wonder how many kids park all the way up there and then walk down to the main school. Like, was
Well,
there a concentration
that day there were 78 used.
in that space? Oh, I'm sorry. Does that say that? Oh, it is
Yeah.
in there.
That fills
Sorry.
up pretty quick, Phil, that everyone
Yeah,
wants.
so
more
I think
spaces.
I think kids are allocated to certain areas,
I got,
maybe
yeah.
not spaces, but
By
I think we need
grade.
to understand that.
Yeah, it's by grade, Chip.
I didn't, okay, sorry about that. I didn't see the font in there. I see it now that I'm looking closer. I see this in the parentheses. Okay, thanks.
But I think it's important to understand, what the, how, I know the data collected is accurate, but how reflective is that on a typical day?
I agree that this is just the starting point. We have a lot to discuss relative to parking. COVID has certainly perhaps changed how we park the sites. And so there will be definitely more discussion about these numbers and, what makes sense for the project moving forward. Absolutely.
And I think, Chip, if we look at the unused, just looking at who didn't use it that day, that looks more staff and handicap spaces than students, but we can go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then if somebody can reach out to the school and find out the criteria and, where kids are supposed to park and what they believe, how they've set it up and why they've set it up the way they have. I guess a parking plan as much as an educational plan, right? There's got to be some thought behind it at some point.
No, we agree.
Thanks.
Anything else before we move on?
The other point I would just kind of curious about, and I think we've asked it before, but on the Walsh Field where we've got 4 primary building opportunities or thoughts, we only have 4 test pits on the corners of the property and nothing kind of through the middle. Do you think you've received enough information to understand the subsurface of that area?
Not to the extent we would if a project were to occur there, which is why we have scope later to complete additional testing. So we had geoprobes performed. We have additional scope for borings, soil borings and test pits as well.
And
So
the additional scope for borings is part of the current
there is a current scope. Yep.
current scope? Okay, so no additional cost?
No. Nope.
Additional cost, but within budget?
Yes. Yes, within the planned budget. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm not sure who's driving, but I think we can move on.
There are no other comments and questions. Now I think we're going to hand this back to Shane to talk about cost estimating for the 11 alternatives and also the evaluation matrix.
Oh, yes. So thank you. So we received the cost estimates back yesterday, and we took those and I'd sent out a pretty extensive analysis this afternoon. We wanted to kind of give you more of a snapshot for this evening's meeting, and certainly we can refer back to what I sent today. But we did price the 11 options. The base renovation, which is just a repair only, we had talked about that, just bringing the existing building up to code, doesn't really address the educational needs, the educational program of the building. It would just be changing hardware, ADA compliance. It would bring the building up to all the code upgrades it needs to bring us. So that was the people often call that the zero option. That was 154 million total project cost. Doesn't add any square footage, doesn't take any away. It just renovates what you have there. We looked at 4 renovation addition options. Those ranged in cost from 217 up to $223 million total project cost. Those were based on a 256,900 square foot building. The extent of the renovation and the new addition was different in some of those. The first 2 were pretty extensive renovation additions, and the last two, the majority of that was new construction. I think there was only about 35 or 38,000 renovation in the field house that was included in that one. So that ranged from 217 to 223 total project cost. We then looked at 6 new construction options. 2 of them are model schools, and 4 of them were new designs. The 3A option is a model school. That's based on, remind me, I think that's the North Middlesex Model School. It's 209,000 square feet. That does include an enlarged gymnasium at 18,000 square feet. Construction cost was 142 million and total project cost was 181. The two new constructions on the Beasley Oval, pretty similar. There was the exact same square footage. The site work scope was very similar to that. So both of those came back, returned the same cost of 179 million construction and 225,900 total project cost. On the Wakefield, 4A again was a model school.
That square footage is wrong.
That square footage is incorrect. That should be 198,000 square feet. That came back at $141 million construction costs and overall project cost of 180 million. So considerably less than
does
the
that
new.
change the square foot cost, or is that just a typo in the approximate area?
It would change the square foot cost to Chip as a form.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, that's one.
To lower it, right?
It'll actually put it up. It'll raise it. Yeah, I think that's at about
Somebody do that
700 and where's the
math real
square
quickly.
foot? Yeah, it's 714 a square foot when I make that change. And then we had 2 new construction options on the Wakefield. Those are about 275,900 square feet, including that includes a 30,000 square foot field house. Construction came back between 184, 187, 100 million, and total project cost between 231 and 235 million. So those are sort of the benchmarks where we came back. These include all the program that we've talked about, the oversized field house, the central office, the WCAT. The new construction do include replicating the black box theater, the bank theater, and all the educational needs of the school based on our visioning and educational plan.
So I have a quick question and observation. I'm just looking at new construction. Both the new construction and the Beasley Oval for the model school and the new construction in Walsh Field for the model school come at the highest price per square foot with less square footage than traditional designs. Why do you think that is? I thought the whole idea of a model school was to cut costs. Anybody?
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's going to cut costs during the design phase, Chip. When it comes to construction, you're not going to realize any savings there. The bricks and mortar will be bid, and they'll be bid at market prices at that time. So you don't really.
These numbers have no soft costs in them.
Why is it different?
The soft costs are in the estimated project cost, Chip, not in the construction cost.
Right, but I'm just looking at the cost per square foot.
That cost per square foot is construction cost, Chip.
Well, why is it
Okay,
different?
not total project cost.
No, that's construction costs.
Shane, why is it different? Like 3A square foot is 682 and the others are at 650 or 668. Why is Beasley Oval Model School square footage higher than any of the others?
It's just the way it works out, Joe. You know, we look at the building size. We allocate a square footage cost to that. We took a look at the site and what was required on the site. So everything's going to be different. Not all of these are the exact same. When you get to the bottom line in construction, there's different site conditions. We're replicating different things in different options. So you're not going to get the exact same square footage when you get to the bottom line.
square footage numbers? Who did that? Where'd you get it?
It's based on our cost estimators. They do cost estimates for each of the options, including benchmark costs for new construction, and they do a pretty detailed, based on the level of information, takeoff on the site work and what's required in the site. So those
both PMC and these cost estimators are the ones that are doing all of the schools right now. So they have a good handle on what construction is costing at the moment.
And there's no escalation or anything. This is today's numbers, correct?
No, this is escalated
to midpoint.
yeah, it started construction in the spring of 25, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so there is some escalation.
Yeah, the escalation to construction has started, including.
Okay.
Is there a
Do any
line
of these
item?
numbers surprise anybody?
There goes my tax bill. Are these costs all costs or just costs that are reimbursable?
This is the total project cost in the right-hand column. That's the total project cost. Some of those costs are reimbursable, some are not. That information was on that spreadsheet I sent today.
Shane,
But
is there a
also-
line item?
Well, that's not everybody talk at once. Jonathan, you had a hand up?
Thanks, Joe. Just a couple of questions just to make sure I'm following everything. Shane, when you said this included the larger gym, were you referring to the 18,000 square foot gym or the 30,000 square foot?
The 3B, 3C, 4B, and 4C include a 30,000 square foot field house.
Okay, great, thank you. And for those options 3 and 4, do those costs also include all of the costs associated with, relocating the fields and reconstructing the oval or Walsh Field in a new location?
Yeah, those are all inclusive. So building on the Walsh Field, we would replicate that elsewhere on site. Building on the Beasley Oval, we would replicate that elsewhere on site.
Okay, and I'm assuming for the renovation additions, it includes the modulars and all of the swing space needs and so forth?
Yeah, the renovation options, we assumed a longer construction duration for those, and we also included modular classrooms for those.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure you sent this out earlier. I just haven't had a chance to read all the details yet. Thank you.
Sandra, you had your hand up?
Yeah, no, I'm all set. Thanks, Joe. I had the same question as Jonathan about the swing space included in the renovation. So.
All right. Are there any other questions regarding the cost?
Are these are these assuming cost when construction starts? If this was going out today, this is what they cost, or is this
no
escalating?
Bring it.
Yeah, it's escalated to yeah.
Okay. Your PDP submitment says we're looking at prices between 100 and 200. I noticed it was highlighted in that draft. So does that mean you're just the highlights in that mean you'll update with this range that we have in front of us?
Correct. Yeah, I just coordinated that narrative with the town administrator, and we just highlighted that, waiting for these costs to come in. So we'll change that.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Obviously the models with the bigger field house cost more to the town. 3B, 3C. 4C being the most, 4B, 4C being the most, but the BC, and you said the BCs are the ones with the 30,000 field house.
Yeah, the 3A and 4A have an 18,000 square foot
right
field house, or smaller.
Right, and those are the low, and those are the lowest amount of cost to town per your spreadsheet. The 128 million, 130 million. So, okay. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of info to look at today, to be honest, but we get it. Thanks for the summary on it.
Jonathan?
All right, thanks. Another related question too. When you look at between the differences between the model school options in 3 and 4 versus B and C, Any sense as to how much of the $40 to $50 million project cost difference is attributed to the gym versus, sort of other design elements that we wouldn't be getting in the model school?
It all relates back, John, pretty much to the square footage. There's, it's a 55,000 square foot or 65,000 square foot difference. And it's all right. Right now, that's all we can do. We can, model it on square foot costs. We don't make a distinction right now for a cost of a gym versus the cost of a classroom versus the cost of a cafeteria. It's a standard cost across.
Shane, on the more detailed breakout that was sent earlier.
Yeah.
Did people get that, Shane?
Did, yeah.
All right. The field house is, I think you showed, told me it's in the bottom of that page, on those four alternatives. One was, it was like 17 million additional. Isn't that correct? The field house.
Yeah, so that's, an 18,000 square foot of field house will cost you about 18 million total cost.
No, I'm talking about, didn't you give me wasn't there a breakdown of if you went from 18 to 30,000 square foot?
Yeah, if you go from, can you just repeat the question, John?
It would be 12,000 square feet times whatever the square
right.
foot.
So to go, right? to go from 12 to 18 would be 5 to 6 million. To go from 12 to 24 would be around 11, 12 million. To go from 12 to 30 would be about 17, 18 million.
Okay.
That would be the value that was not reimbursed by MSBA.
Right.
When we had when Wakefield had a high school forum back in October 2019, the numbers in that forum were closer to 136 million for a big reno or a new school. So we can see everything going on in the world with pricing that obviously that doesn't even meet the lowest option here at 141 million. So we just I hope that that difference doesn't change. MSBA doesn't look at this. They know what's going on in the world and realize that that doesn't change their review of this project in any way, I guess is my question.
These are 2025 numbers, aren't they? So these are numbers 3 years from now.
Right.
I know, but when we applied for the MSBA, didn't we apply with certain numbers hey, we're looking at a school in this range and now these prices are coming in way above that range. Does MSBA say, hey, hold up, when you applied, you said 136 million at the top end, do they understand what's going on in the construction world and don't hold us to our original application for their program?
They won't, and that's why they make us go through, this 3-phase submissions at PDP, PSR, and schematic. And we won't establish a final budget with them till the end of the year when we've submitted the schematic design. But at that point, obviously, these are just sort of benchmarking. At that point, we'll have a more detailed design, a more detailed estimate, and we'll be more confident on the costs.
And also, isn't it, Shane, the MSBA only gives a certain dollar amount per square foot, is like 300 and something?
They reimburse $360 per square foot on the eligible square footage. Yeah.
Great.
But these numbers are kind of, they're probably where I thought they would be. They're falling right in the middle of where we're seeing other schools. There is other schools out there that are maybe a little bit less, but there's other schools out there that are up in the 700s also. So, these are sort of falling in the middle of what we're seeing right now on a square foot basis.
Yeah, based upon what you had said earlier about square footage from what you had seen, I was pretty happy with these square foot numbers.
Yeah, I think, as I said, they're right in the middle.
Any other questions on this construction cost per square foot and the various alternatives?
Yeah, I think, Joe, it's just important to state that this is ballpark numbers. right? Real full square foot, as Shane has said before, that there's no differentiated between an English classroom, a science lab, cafeteria, media center. These are just good square foot numbers, and we shouldn't like start thinking this is what the project's ultimately going to cost. These are just, I hate to
They
use the
should
word
be-
ballpark, but good thumbnail prints.
They should be used for comparative purposes at this point, high level comparative cost,
Right.
because we're still very early in the conceptual phase
With
of the
some of the
project.
alternatives, they don't go into details on how much renovation in this area versus another area and things of that nature that I noticed when I looked at the numbers earlier. That there's some alternatives like 2B, maybe there's not as much renovation as others and things like that. So I think it's right. These just look at it as a big picture type numbers and compare all the various alternatives. Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? Let's go to the next.
So now we're going to transition to talk about the evaluation matrix. And I think that Helen is going to share her screen.
Did that work?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, it's zoomed in, so I will have to scroll around a bit to find our way. But essentially, last time you saw these criteria, we had just maybe put in a few red, green, yellow colorations to each of the boxes. And just a reminder, green being favorable, yellow is sort of neutral, middle ground, red, of course, unfavorable, stop. So the project team actually did go ahead. We talked about doing this en masse all together, but we also knew that we have a lot more information about the building specifics than the committee does at this point. So we did take a first pass at this in terms of evaluating each of the options along the lines of these criteria. And so I believe these came out earlier today. I don't know if people have had a chance to dig into the detail yet, but we can certainly zero in on areas where you don't think we got it right, or we could also walk through some examples and thinking.
I think Helen, you should be walking through these various
Okay.
alternatives.
Okay, great.
Obviously not number one. We all know what that is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to ask Brian to help me with this as well.
Sure.
I know he did a lot of the coloring, and we did concur. I
think
so.
And we,
If
sorry,
you-
Joe, go ahead.
Brian, Helen, why don't we go through each one of the alternatives? Go down the list, go down
Okay.
the color, make the
Yep.
determination, and then at the end of it, see if anybody in the committees has any issue with any of the determinations that you made.
Okay.
I think that'd be the quickest and easiest way to go through it. Okay.
Okay. So we'll go vertically.
Yes.
Okay. So option 2A, you want to take it away, Brian? And I can scroll down as we go.
Sure. And I think as we go through, we can probably talk about these as families if it helps us move a little faster. The ad reno schemes all meet the educational needs. They are not as good at producing the ideal configurations and adjacencies of the program. Therefore, they're colored yellow, which is, it's a mild difference, but it is a difference, and I think it's worth noting. The flexibility factor for 2A is also somewhat limited because we're building on basically within the framework of the existing building. There can be flexibility for growth, but it's not as good as it would be for a new building. Meeting the educational visioning principles, guiding principles, is a green for all of the designs that we would put forward. moving down the solar orientation. As we discussed with the constraint of the sites, it's difficult for basically all but 2 of the schemes. So for 2A, it only gets, sort of passable marks. But for building efficiency, the next item, we feel that we can achieve high efficiency, and that's really becoming more the norm with meeting building codes across the board. Presence on Farm Street, still we believe that where the school is now is the most visible and best location for a school. So relative to the other options, which are either set back and down or off to the side on Walshfield, these get green marks. So that's 2A. Moving down to community issues. Sorry, before we move on, so I just, you may have in mind a way that you're keeping score and grading the comments. The educational items at the top probably want to bear a little bit more weight in terms of the evaluation, because really they're the fundamental reason for the project. And so, before we get too far down the list, it may be worth sort of noting that relative to others. I know I'm not meaning to diminish any particular issue or set of issues, but I think it's worth noting that grouping. So on community use, 2A gets a green mark, and all the new buildings will have good community access and ability to basically separate the building and secure the building for functions. Disruptions to neighbors, again, the site of the existing high school has a lot of buffer space around it, so it's less likely to be disruptive. The site availability for the field house is not as good on the ad reno. It's not just that there's not space, it's that with a renovated scheme, we're talking about renovating the field house that's existing. And so you wouldn't do both, and that's why those are red here. Sufficient parking would be provided for all schemes. Parking where needed would be provided for all schemes. Allows for hemlock realignment, yes for all. Additional building site infrastructure required. This is a yes. I think that basically all of the options up to 3C could have a yellow mark because the realignment of hemlock is included, but also that I think we would consider a major field element site infrastructure as well. So in every case where we're building on a field site, we're replacing that site elsewhere among the 3 parcels. So that one's yellow. Proximity to resource area, this is the one that's most distant, so it is green. Allows for adequate vehicle access is good and green. Athletic field recreation required, no in this case, so it's green. And again, the others that build on field sites have that element as yellow. Under sustainability, energy efficient, yes, across the board. Optimizes passive solar. Again, the opportunity for orientation, ideal orientation, is limited because of either the elongation of the Beasley Oval site in the opposite direction that is ideal, or at Walshfield, it being a very sort of squarish and compact site, so it doesn't allow you to sort of stretch east and west as well. So that's a place where design will overcome those challenges of the site, but none is really sort of optimal, I would say. Swing space is needed for the addition renovation schemes A and B, because the whole building is affected in those. And those would require phasing because of the scope and scale of the renovation would be I believe, an additional 12-month duration. So a 3-year process. We would seek to minimize the disruption by phasing that project.
Okay, does anybody have any issues with the coloring on 2A?
We kind of went through A, B, C, and D, didn't we?
Kind of,
I'll go back through. So I think 2A and 2B are quite similar.
right.
And I can jump to 2C and 2D and tackle those together since they are similar.
Sure. Does anybody have any issues with 2A or 2B from the descriptions that Brian's given? Hearing none. Why don't you go to C and D?
Okay, great. So meets educational needs, those are good. The buildings will be designed, for the high performing school. Optimal configuration and adjacencies. The 2C scheme, which is across a bridge, gets slightly lower mark because of that disconnect of, physical adjacency, wanting to be A and B right next to each other. And especially for a gym, it wants to be connected to the main sort of hub of the school. And in 2C, you're walking across a bridge to get to it. So that's why that is yellow. Flexibility for future growth. Yes, these schemes will have a concept for future growth. Meeting educational visioning. Yes, across the board again. We talked about orientation being a challenge for these. Efficiency, again, is not a problem. That, again, it's the architecture that addresses and overcomes the issue that's not ideal due to site. Presence on Farm Street, we start to get a little bit lower grade here because of the corner site on the curve, not quite as visible and sort of frontal. Though, as we design both these designs and to a greater extent, the 4 B and C schemes start to inflect and start to be able to be seen more from Farm Street, but these are just a passing grade. Under community, the community function will be high performing. Again, more disruption to neighbors here now that we're on Walshfield. The adjacency to the abutting neighbors is quite close, and the building is fairly large for the parcel that it has. 2D gets a red mark because of the additional concept of a roadway going around the school between it and the neighborhood, which becomes maybe a little more distant each time we talk about it, but it's here, and so it gets a red mark. Again, both sites are renovating, both concepts, both options are renovating the existing field house. So the 30,000 square foot one is ruled out here. Moving down to parking, sufficient parking where needed will be provided. These not only allow for hemlock realignment, they require it. So those are green. Additional site infrastructure, being the roadway being moved, are also here. Also the replacement of Walsh and the tennis courts on the high school make it a yellow. Resource area, again, becomes an issue, more so when we push the roadway near it. So that gets red. Adequate vehicle access. Access is good. Congestion and traffic flow is a different order of problem for Walsh Field site. Athletic field recreation required, yes, so that's yellow. Energy efficiency will be very good. No optimal solar orientation, but that's okay. Requires swing space, yes, for the field house. So activities in the rest of the school can be ongoing while these additions are constructed. And these would require phasing. Are there any questions?
Yeah, is there anything, on 2C and 2D?
Yeah, I'd go back up to the educational on 2. And again, it's just a question, allows for optimal configuration and adjacencies. I don't understand why 2D is green and not yellow if 2C is yellow. I mean, we're still on both sides of the highway, of the road, and
No.
Actually, no, the 2D
No.
moves the roadway around the school to get the adjacency.
oh, okay.
And that's, that's a big expenditure to be able to do that, but that's why one is yellow and the other is green.
Okay, thanks. I missed that piece.
No problem.
So Joe, if I
guess
could,
the other question I have is, when do we start talking about how important we think the criteria are as we're rating things? Right, all these criteria, may or may not be rated the same.
Right.
When does that discussion take place?
That's really, I mean, that's a discussion for tonight. And at what
Okay.
point tonight that happens is really up to you. We're hoping to see robust debate on many of these items tonight, and we don't want to be, perceived as the judge and jury here. We're more sort of trying the case and let you be the judge. And this is really your matrix. We want you to let us know if we've got anything in the wrong place. But yes, as we did when we filled this out, we had debate and we had made a few changes. So I'm sure that's going to happen with you all.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with any of the colors. What I'm curious about is, how important do we think, I'll pick one, that the school presence on Farm Street? Right? You guys seem to think that's pretty important. I personally could care less. I actually think a lack of presence on Farm Street, it might be better. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of curious about. When do we start having that debate?
Or better way to put it, Chip, when we're looking
discussion,
we're looking to have these, are we, when we go to the MSBA, we're obviously giving them number 1, right?
correct, yeah.
All right, do we give them one of number 2?
Yes, at least one of number 2.
But we have to give one of number 2.
Yep.
Either 2A, B, C, or D. And we have to give at least one of 3A, B, C, and D?
At least one of
The
3
final
or
6,
4.
pick one.
I'm already talking at once. Say that again.
At least one new construction, Joe. So one from 3A, B, C, 4A, B, C. We can pick more than one, but at least one new construction. So that's the 3 series and the 4 series.
So we have to pick one of the 2s and at least one of the 3 or A, B, and C, and D, or one of the 4. Is that right?
Yep.
How many can we pick? One of the 2, one of the 3, and one number 4?
We can, yeah. The minimum is number 1, an ad reno and 1 new construction, but we can pick more than 3.
Okay, there's a minimum. All right.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know. All right. Should we discuss?
I think, Joe, if we keep going through how we are, that'd be great. Then we can open it up for which ones we think make sense.
Well, Chip, I was thinking because we've already done all the 2s, do we think of one of the 2s is one that what people would choose? Either 2A, B, C, or D?
Sure, or we can do
I
it.
had a question on one of the line items.
Go ahead, John.
On the parking where needed, unless some of the parking has changed from when we went through, these 12 options a couple weeks ago. I think some of them, and we have it all the same, right? All green, but I believe that we talked about some of those options not having parking where it would be ideal. when we went through it before. Like there was no parking near public spaces, meaning the auditorium and the gym on a couple of them.
Right.
No parking near the fields at all for public usage. So I'm not sure that that should be, unless they've changed. I know that we talked, but I think we talked about the fact that the parking wasn't equal in all these.
Right, there was somewhere the buildings on Walsh Field and there was a recreation of Beasley Oval, and the parking was on the other side of the oval.
So
Yeah,
I think
I hear that.
2C and 2D, the parking, maybe you want to look at that. Should we change that to yellow? Because right now the parking is quite a distance from the school. It's on the other side of Hemlock.
I actually would say it's red for those two. The majority of the parking wrapping around the outfield of Walsh Field isn't very helpful to the school.
And then also the on 2C, the allows for adequate vehicular access. I don't think 2C really allows much. It's got a small loop at the front, but other than that, there's no access. I guess it's up the east side, on the south side, or the southwest side.
Right. I think this is sort of a theme for the Walsh Field site, not just with these, but with the 4 series where we've been striving to get a longer and longer drop off at the building. But ultimately, where you come in off of Farm Street, there's not much opportunity to get out of the intersection and into that driveway because of the crossover. So when we go to those schemes, we might revisit this line there as well.
See, Jonathan Chines had his hand up.
Jonathan?
Thanks. I had first a question just on the criteria, just to make sure I'm understanding them differently. We've got solar orientation listed twice under sustainability in building. Is there intended to be a difference between those two? And I guess if so, if you could help me understand sort of how those are tackling the solar orientation piece differently.
I think that the difference is, and I did not craft the description, but there's one that references classrooms under building, and that's really for the sort of the best visual comfort for the space and the performance of the space, so that it's not a high glare or a dark space.
Okay.
And the other item under sustainability is more about taking advantage of the solar gain or blocking the solar gain that would happen that affects the mechanical scheme for the building and makes the mechanical system work less hard if you have good orientation.
Okay, got it. So the
that's
second
what
one is more related to sort of building performance. The first one, if you will, is more, just kind of quality of life in the building, how it feels from an access and kind of openness standpoint. Is that in a non-construction architectural way, is that a good way of thinking about it?
Yeah, it is. And, with the first one on the building, if you have not the best orientation, you might see more sort of external sunshade devices on the building, which have a cost themselves. So there's a bit of a trickle down with that in other areas as well.
Okay. Just the other comment I wanted to make on 4D. And I'm not
Jonathan.
What's that? I'm sorry, 2D.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Just, and I'm not sure where this fits, but I do think the reorientation of Hemlock Road is something that I think probably needs to be captured a little bit more as a disadvantage. I know in the site working group, we heard from Lieutenant Anderson concerns about, such a kind of massive reorientation of the road. It is certainly for anyone who's using Hemlock Road to get to, Breakheart or to the Voke. I mean, it would be a pretty dramatic change. And so I don't know if that's, kind of a ding under adequate vehicular access, or if we view the realignment of Hemlock Road in this case almost as a negative. But I think there's a lot there that we probably need to take into account as a bit of a disadvantage for that plan.
I think the disruption to neighbors field is carrying a lot of weight right now, trying to represent that issue that you're talking about. But
it's more than neighbors, though. Because it's really anyone who uses Hemlock Road for any other purpose. It's just a very kind of roundabout way of getting to Landrigan Field or Breakheart. Again, I'm not sure where to capture it, but it feels like there's something there that we should be mindful of.
Yeah, I think the site infrastructure should be read. Helen, fourth one down under site.
I mean, I don't know if that would even be a runner, once we go to DCR, because if you've got buses queuing on that, it's still a public road, right? You can't shut down the public road while the buses queue with the lights flashing.
Yeah, I mean, I was eliminating 2D just because of the Hemlock Road design.
Same here.
So,
Helen?
To me, 2D wasn't even a possibility.
So maybe allows for adequate vehicle access, just make that a red, and I think that probably knocks it out of contention.
Joe, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Helen?
Yes.
What do you need from the committee tonight? Do you need us to make a pick a one of two, one of three, one of four? Or what? Or are we just going to go through the criteria and pick them on the 27th?
I think that's up to you. I mean, if people feel that we've got some momentum going, and I think minimally it'd be good to get our way through the criteria, because now that people are thinking about it, we can apply them across.
Right, but I mean, ultimately, do you?
If some are percolating to the top, then by all means, yes, let's go ahead and name them. But we're not requesting or requiring you to do it tonight.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, if we are required to do it.
No.
I only do what I'm required to do, Helen.
I think
Bill's
also
past his 30-minute limit already, so.
Yeah, it's way past it, Chip, way past it.
it may also be helpful just to eliminate some options so that there's not a lot of energy spent in the next 2 weeks.
I think we could eliminate 2D from what everyone has been discussing.
Great, that sounds clear.
Okay.
Shall we move to the threes?
Yes, Brian, thank you.
All right. I'm actually going to hide these only because I lost some of my my freeze pane. So I'm not deleting them. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. So we need, right, okay, so we've got the headings on top. We lost our split screen, but that's fine. So the 3 series and the 4 series, these are all new buildings. The A of each of those is the model school. And so it gets slightly less good marks for delivering the educational program.
Why is that?
Because if you look at the program area, putting aside the enlarged gymnasium, there's still 50,000 square feet of building in the new school schemes that's not in the model schemes. So we're allowed to increase the size.
Why, Brian?
Because it's an MSBA program, and that program says that you can enlarge the model school to meet the enrollment. And that would apply for things like classrooms and sort of core program, which we then take and we prorate. And we've added the area in addition to the original area of, say, Grafton High School or say North Middlesex High School. And we've maxed that out. So that is what gave you, on the previous discussion about cost, a lower square footage and a lower cost of the building, is that there are fewer spaces. And so it's not delivering everything that we've been asked to provide in the program. And just by nature of that, I mean, it wouldn't have the same number of special education spaces, for example. So, I mean, right there is a significant hit to the goals of the school for the future.
Or even classrooms, right, Brian?
Or classrooms would be increased to meet the enrollment. It may not be
Right,
the
but
same number
not
that
the
is now being
educational goal,
requested due
but not
to
the educational goals of having teachers have their own classrooms and the things
Small
that have been
class
being
size.
discussed, right?
18
Or class
per
size.
class, yeah.
Yeah,
smaller class size is what has driven up our classroom count a little bit. You wouldn't be able to do that with a model school.
All right, thank you.
Sure. So that's why those two first rows are yellow. After
But
that,
just in that, if to me, if it doesn't meet our educational needs for all students,
why aren't they
it should be red.
Helen,
And
you
it's
want to
simple. If they don't meet the needs, why are we even considering them?
I agree. I think if these educational things aren't green, they shouldn't even be on the list. Like, this is like heavily weighted that we're building a new school. We should be meeting our educational needs, not be neutral on it.
I agree
Agreed.
100%. Yep.
Agreed.
we're happy to do that.
Same.
We might have soft sold that one a little.
Yeah, I mean, in summary, the model school, you know, doesn't allow you to tailor the building in the way, it's less flexible. So,
And a red, let's face it, a red is, you know, it speaks for itself. We don't want to rule anything out that you want to have on the table.
yep.
I think Phil's got another question.
I do. I just have a question about the flexibility for future growth. Is that like growth mindset? Like our kids' minds are going to grow? Because I don't know how much space, unless we start building either down or up into the sky, how much growth any of these models are showing us, because it's such a tight site. Like, how are any of these green, and what is that actually category trying to represent? Or maybe my question should be reversed.
Yes, thanks. It's physical growth. So you need more classrooms in the future. You're going to build up. We're going to design the structure so that it can accommodate another floor on top of the building.
Oh.
And that's our approach to expansion.
That's what I was hoping. We saw one of those examples in one of the visioning groups of a school that had done that. And that's such a forward-thinking idea. Okay, so.
And the actual model school that it's based on, Grafton, is designed that way. It's got a 2-story pod and a 3-story pod. The 2-story pod is where you can build another level. We'll already be building 3 levels, and you'll be going to 4, which is a bigger deal for a school, but I digress. Okay, future growth. We just discussed.
Brian, there's some more hands up.
Okay.
I see Jonathan, go ahead.
This is great.
Sure. Just going back to the model schools for a second, are there other model school templates that we could be looking at that potentially would land us in the green for the educational needs? I know we were looking specifically at, I think it was the North Middlesex or Grafton School, but are there other model schools in the MSBA program that potentially are better fits for Wakefield?
I may not be the best one to answer that. I don't know if Shane or Helen, you want to take that?
I'm not sure we can look. I think there's 5 or 6 high school models, but they're all based on design enrollment. MSBA will allow you to deviate from that. I think it's 15%. So our 1,000 enrollment, we would have to find a model school that you know is 850 or 1,150, somewhere in that range, We wouldn't be
Okay.
allowed to go outside of that. So it's
So it's not like there's a
really
menu that you choose from. They have literally like an option for each kind of enrollment range.
correct. And yeah, I think
Okay.
that, you know, for high school, like there may be 6 or 7 max.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
And these are buildings that were designed by SMMA, so we can deliver them.
Sandra, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wondered whether it makes sense to move that future growth under the building category then, if it really is the expanding physical space.
You mean into the building category?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Remove it
we could talk
then.
about that. I mean, we felt like it was one that sort of bridged both, right? Because the reason you would grow would be because either your educational
students.
program was changing or your enrollment went up.
Right.
Um,
And if you don't have it, you're gonna face an impact to your quality of education.
Okay, I can see either side.
Bill, you had your hand up as well? Bill?
No, sorry, lowering it.
Okay. All right, Brian.
Okay, moving on. Sorry, we're at building.
Yeah.
Solar orientation. These, again, the constraints of the site are causing those to be just okay, not optimal. The building systems and envelope efficiency, again, across the board will be very good. Presence on Farm Street. On Beasley Oval, we're set back a bit. On Walsh Field, we're off to the side. Again, this may be a subjective item. It's different for everyone. I still think that the building will have a very good presence, wherever we put it. It's just, we're looking at it in a relative term. The building will not be front and center on Farm Street if we go this route. Community use is excellent. Disruptions to neighbors, not so much on Beasley, more so on Walsh Field, as we discussed. Site area available for the field house. We're not carrying that for the 2 model schools. We are for the new buildings, so those are green. Sufficient number of parking spaces, yes. Parking where needed. I think we said that there's some debate about that. Keep in mind that even when we take the 3 or however many schemes to the next round, this will be looked at again more closely with a more sort of defined building, and we can run through options of that. That it's really sort of our approach to locate the parking where it's going to be needed in the future. And I think for these, we have flexibility, even though the diagram may not show it at the moment. Allowing hemlock realignment, all of these allow it. Additional building and site infrastructure required. Actually, the 3 series, Helen, maybe these should be yellow as well, because they include the relocated road, and also the field is being reconstructed. So I think that probably wants to be a yellow as well. Yeah. Proximity to the resource area. The rest of the way, we're looking at impacts, or at least constraints of resources adjacent. Allows for adequate vehicle access. Probably the 3 series is the best, because there's an ability for a long driveway going to the school. So lots of queuing space off of Farm Street. So that's why that's green, and the 4 series are yellow. Athletic field recreation, yes, the rest of the way. So those are yellow. Energy efficient, yes. Passive solar, not ideal for 4 of the schemes, but the last 2 just happened to have better orientation, the way the building is laid out. Requires swing space. That's an upside to all of the new buildings. I'd be interested to hear some discussion of the appetite for any scheme that has swing space and requires modulars, because I think that will also be impactful, more so in the next round, but that's, I think, an important topic, defining topic. And then back up for the 4 here, unless there are questions on the 3.
Well, you didn't go through the last one. I'm
Yeah,
curious on
what do you need phasing for the Beasley Oval?
Or for, are you thinking athletic phasing?
Is that, yeah.
There's no
Still have
academic
phasing,
phasing.
sorry. You still have phasing because you have to take down the existing school, so you can't finish the site. There's still a phasing component to it. Right? So you won't be able to finish all your parking and all your roadway systems.
Okay.
Okay.
But you're not talking about educational phasing.
No.
Not phasing of the building, right? Phasing of the site work.
Right, so there's phasing in
Yeah.
every single concept.
Yeah, there's gonna be phasing in all of them.
Yeah, I don't remember what the 2s were, but there'll be, if that's neutral, yeah. Some were red, some were yellow, yeah.
Right, red where it affects the building.
Okay.
Are there any questions on the 3A?
Okay. Moving to the
Phil has his
4s.
hand up. Sorry,
sorry.
I can see.
Sorry, trying to use the hand thing. I'll try to lower it too.
All right.
Look at that. Proximity to resource area, those are the water areas off the farm, and does that also include the water? Is that what the resource area is?
The wetland areas, yes.
Okay, because I would think there's yellow. I'm looking at them here. Hold on. Just wondering, like, what is your proximity, and are we considering like 50 and 100-year flood maps, like maybe, or 50-year, if this is a 50-year school, are we looking at any of these and what possibly could be happening with these water areas, in the future? We building close now, but in 30 years, we're going to be experiencing constant, floods. So is that, like, how is that factored into the planning around like water sources? And how do you get yellow and not like always red, I guess, when it comes to being this close to water?
In terms of the building placement, we are not in the wetland. We're not even in the 50-foot buffer zone. In a couple of cases, we're within 100 feet of wetland. We do look at flood maps when we design the building. We make sure that there's proper drainage, and I'll defer to Erin if she's still on. She is really the expert on all things water and how we manage it on the site. But those areas are yellow more because they impact the planning of the building and limit the opportunity to have access behind the building because we're so tight. So if now we're within 50 feet, we need to build a road behind the building. We're not going to be able to do that potentially without impacting the wetland. And so that's why these are yellow. They just really constrain the building to a degree that there's very little room to maneuver. So the quality of the design of the site is going to be impacted. It's not that we're at risk of flooding the building. It's more sort of secondary or tertiary. I don't want to make a pun, but trickle down effects.
Of course, you should use a pun every chance you get.
If I were to add, so we don't have a criteria identified for resiliency on site design specific to floodplain. But our project is not within a floodplain. Any of these schemes are not within a floodplain. We do employ resilient site design when we get down to designing stormwater management, where we locate, how we locate circulation, and that will come later. But I think as far as comparing all of these options, they all would be rated the same way. So I'm not sure it would help you kind of distinguish one option over the other as far as this flooding and future consideration and what you're talking about, Phil.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I just
Okay.
wasn't curious how that's factored in. When you see everything being built in the seaport, you wonder how much those things were factored in the seaport. My other site question, we'll go back to parking. So there was mentioned earlier about 403 parking spaces on the current site. I noticed that besides option 1, they're all green. Does that mean that there's at least, what, 400 matching numbers, like 403 spaces, or that what the SBA says we need for spaces? Like, what number are all these models representing to all get green except for the first one?
Sure. So what all of these images show is about the same quantity of parking that you have today. The reason why the first option is red is because we're not adding any parking, but we do see opportunities to address the parking needs in all options in the same way, and we will do that, and that's why the rest of the options are green.
Okay, so that's not representing the number of space, because it says sufficient number. So that's why I'm guessing like, oh, well, that must mean that there's that number count for every one of those models meets what we have or better.
We're not there yet. Nope, we're going to figure out what the number wants to be, and then we will be sure to incorporate that number in any of the designs so we can see what we look at. And then, Brian mentioned we're going to come back to this criteria after kind of refinements to the designs, after we spend some time, and we can reevaluate the options because they're going to, I think some will emerge as others fall away.
Yeah, okay. I gotta, and stop me if I'm going, but the first column, like the building, community, like all your main, what are you calling those? Like, I don't know what you call it, what the term is. Categories. There we go. It's categories. So like, there's nothing in there about like the television studio, which I know is not physically part of a school project that probably MSBA cares, but it is a factor in our community's review of this project on whether or not we can continue to lease space or have space for and we've talked about this, I know, in length at other meetings. Is there any indication in any of these models that there's space that would be available for a studio of any sort? And would that be one of the categories we should add, or is that just not involved with what the goal of this matrix is?
It's been factored into all of the options. So it's in terms of being a distinctive element, it's not. So you consider it equal for all. We've already included it in the square footage that we're showing.
You have, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Shane listed that along with the theater, the black box, the number of things that were included in all the designs earlier today.
Sorry, okay. Okay, good, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on 3A, B, or C? Well, let's go to the 4s.
All right, here we go. All right, I've lost the left side.
I know.
Let's see if I can remember what they are.
No. I'm trying. It's my Excel manipulation skills. I'm gonna hide these again.
Helen, could you maybe do like a freeze panes? With the
I
top
tried,
and left?
Sandra, if you can walk me through, I've been trying to split and freeze all evening, but this was not the night to learn, so I do apologize.
See, your freeze pane is up the top here. I can't add it.
Yeah, you have it frozen, Helen.
Green grab.
I don't have it. I have it hidden, but I might.
A is frozen. Yeah, there you.
Something is.
Unfreeze.
You want me to?
I think you're doing great, Helen.
Okay,
Don't
all
worry
right.
about it.
Let's just go.
Yeah.
If you just click on cell L13.
The first series is, in terms of educational, is basically identical to the 3 series. So the model school gets low marks for meeting the educational needs and optimal configuration and adjacencies. For the building, again, one of the options, the 4A, is less good in terms of orientation because it's a little bit more kind of blocky. The other 2 have wings, so to speak, that are better able to receive sunlight. Building systems and envelope efficiency will be great. School presence on Farm Street, off to the side, so only okay marks for that. As for community, that the first item, community use and separate access, will be incorporated in fully. Disruptions to neighbors and abutters, this is yellow because of the immediacy to the neighborhood and the size of the building, 3 stories. If you do talk about expansion, again, we're saying there's a 4th story. So that's an issue. The site for field house, I think, is the next one. So 4A is the model school, so it's been ruled out there, but the other 2, we could fit the field house in. And again, this is important to think what would happen if we couldn't relocate Hemlock Road. We become even more constrained on that site, and then adding the 12,000 to bump up the field house means you're displacing even more parking that's right adjacent to the building. So there's a little bit of a knock-on effect there in terms of the design. The other 2 we're calling green, but just know that it makes the design a bit tighter.
Ryan, to that end, I wonder if for 4B and 4C, the site area for the field house actually is more yellow. I mean, it seemed when we looked at the options, it felt like it was really shoehorned in there to a greater extent than the Beasley Oval options. It felt like it was doable, but not ideal. And so I don't know, I wonder if it's more yellow than green in these cases.
Is there any disagreement with that? That feels.
I mean, again, I think it comes down to what sort of weight you put on each one of these line items. So whether it's yellow or green, fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, if it fits, it's still green, isn't it?
The area is available if you take
All
a
right,
look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the committee discussion we've had on the site meetings was that having it more centralized to all the fields, as opposed to being tucked away and is less centralized some of the fields. Maybe that could help us distinguish more between the yellow and green.
I think if it fits, it should stay green, and the further just design of it can down the road.
Okay, moving on to the site items. Sufficient parking, yes. Located where needed, yes. This where needed, and Erin, jump in if you feel strongly that differently here. Again, due to the constraint of the site and the presence of the public road, kind of defining where the school is versus where parking may be. Parking on the other side of Hemlock, I don't know if that would put it into a yellow. Where needed is more of a subjective term. And
Right,
so,
I think, Brian, weren't these the ones where there was parking way across, like far away from these sites, from the baseball field? And
this is the furthest from
yeah,
that area, so yes.
I think that should be noted.
Shall we make these yellow?
Yeah. I think Eric had made that point.
Good. Allows for Hemlock realignment, I think necessitates Hemlock realignment, so those are green. Building and site infrastructure, yes, with the road. and the field. Proximity to resource area is affected. Adequate vehicular access, not so great. I mean, and so this might be open to moving more toward the red, just due to the very limited dimension we have to work with off of Farm Street. Any strong feelings there? Not, we can leave it yellow.
No, let's leave it yellow.
Athletic field recreation, yes. Sustainability, these will be energy efficient options. The B and C schemes optimize passive solar. A does not so well. Schedule requires swing space, no, but requires phasing for the field due to the presence of the existing high school for the duration of construction.
Bill, you had a question on the fours?
Sustainability, if it doesn't meet passive solar, but some options do, then shouldn't the energy efficient color be different for that as well? Like if like B and C has green passive solar, but A has yellow. But when you look at the line above, they're all green. Wouldn't energy efficient for 4A be yellow?
So we'll achieve energy efficiency. It may put pressure on other areas of the design for us to achieve that when we have a less optimal building orientation. If you start with the best solar orientation of the building, you can move to more and more passive means of maintaining comfort and spend less energy keeping the building comfortable. So they're related, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Any other questions on the 4A, B, C? Okay.
Joe, do you want to go back and try to eliminate some of these and just see if there's kind of a unanimous decision to eliminate some and see where that ends up?
I would agree with that.
Joe, if I might, just to.
All right, yeah.
So the MSBA will require that we always keep number 1 because they want the benchmark
Right,
for what
yeah.
it would cost. We also have to include at least one ad reno.
So one of the number 2.
So one of the number 2s, the MSBA requires at least one ad reno be an option. So just to keep that in mind.
Looking at the 2s, should we make a decision tonight as to which one? Are people comfortable enough with that?
Well, I'm certainly comfortable in starting to eliminate some if anybody has objection. To me, from our criteria, it seems 2D should be eliminated.
I think 2C as well.
Yeah, 2C.
I was gonna go one at a time.
I'm just seeing red here, Chip.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on 2C and D. I was gonna go D, get that done, and then go C.
Yeah, I think 2C.
I think we
and
can
D.
knock them off.
Does anybody have any issues with eliminating 2C and 2D?
I like 2C.
Joe, can I ask why 2C?
Yeah, I like 2C.
I'm just going by the criteria and the reds.
Oh,
Will there be a weighted average?
We waited. We're the ones. We have to do that now.
All right, well, let's go back to, does anybody have an objection getting rid of 2D? Hearing none, get rid of 2D.
Ellen, don't change the colors, please. 'cause
I
we
know,
just-
I know.
Just, it's fine, just hide it.
Yep.
Thanks.
And then if we're just trying to get rid of things, I would also get rid of 3A and 4A, the model schools, just because they don't meet our educational criteria.
All right, one at a time. 3A, does anybody have an objection to getting rid of 3A?
No.
These are the cheapest models, but I'm gonna, that we're getting rid of, but they don't meet the educational goals. So I support getting rid of them.
Anybody against that? All right, 3A is gone. 4A. Anybody have an issue eliminating 4A? 4A is gone.
All right, I think those were the easy ones. Now let's go back to 2A, B, and C and try to come up with one of those.
The one, I'll be.
Do we have a large?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Do you have a large picture of 2B and 2C?
Yeah, can we just flip the big on that top piece so we can remember what they are?
Do you want to pull the PowerPoint back up?
Yes, I got it.
Ryan, he can pull the scheme. So I need to stop sharing, right? Yes.
I can figure out how to share again. Okay. Still too small. All right. 2A. Do we want to start at A?
Yeah, or you can just click through them so we can remember what they are. It's fine with me.
Here's A. 57% of existing is demolished, 43% renovated. The courtyard filled in.
Is 2A the, Helen? Is 2A the, when you folks applied for the job? You gave some model views of it. Is this the addition renovation?
It's similar. It has changed since what was in the proposal,
Right.
but similar ideas are here.
So is 2A the closest to what it was? Or is it 2B?
Ryan, can you
2A and
flip to-
2B are really similar. I would say that 2A is probably closer to what the way that massing was configured
Yeah.
in those images.
Yeah,
Okay.
2A is closer to the proposal.
All right, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. I was curious. It's hard to see it from looking at it from this.
So should we eliminate 2B?
And what's 2C? You want to show that as well?
2C is across the bridge to Walsh.
So I don't know.
Are we able to keep 2 of 2s? Because this is great. I know that the reno is one of the criteria we need to give, right? And this meets that, like the ad reno, but they're very different. The A and B and C, I'd almost say like 2 completely different projects, right?
Right. This is almost
and
new.
People like
with
C.
John.
Yeah,
It
like
pretty
this is
much
a
is
new
new
school
construction.
with just the gym, right?
Is
Um,
that a bridge too
difference-
far?
One at a time, please.
Is that a bridge too far?
Eric, you raised your hand?
Yeah, a couple of points. One is that I do think there's some value in weighting the criteria because it's been mentioned before, but some of the criteria will be very important, others, not so much. But I think that's going to start to be telling in our matrix. And then I get back to this particular scheme that the parking is just not in the right place.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think another fairly critical difference between this and the other renovation schemes is the other schemes are contiguous to the gym. And this one, it's quite distant to the far educational wing. And imagine walking the length of the building and then across the bridge over Hemlock just to get to the gym. And so that physical detachment is still there to some degree. It's
It'd be good
physically
for
connected, yes, but I think that's something.
It'd be good for phys ed class. You have a long walk there, right?
You get your steps in.
Yeah, you get your steps in early.
Did Chief Sullivan say he didn't want to see a bridge?
That is correct.
And he wanted drive access to the back of the school, which he doesn't really get completely on this model.
Yeah, but they haven't really looked at that on any of the models yet, really.
And in the what if scenario, if Hemlock Road is not realigned, you're talking about a bridge that's quite a bit longer span, more steel, more distant.
I'm curious, Doug, Mr. Superintendent, what were your thoughts for not eliminating this?
For C,
Yeah,
I just thought that it in terms of an ad reno choice, this added most in regard to classroom space and adjacencies and a new educational plan.
see, I almost have trouble calling this an ad reno.
I agree. I don't disagree, Chip. I don't disagree.
I believe it meets the criteria in MSBA's eyes.
It probably does, but
But
to
it
me,
doesn't
this
look
is, you're building a new educational school and attaching it to an old field house.
Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
I take some pause before I mention this, but I'm going to put another option out there. What if we were to build, and this is where the discussion about swing space and modulars comes back into play, because I see the attractiveness of this in that you can build, the lion's share of the building while you're still occupying the school, the current school, and then it's the gym that really gets, needs the swing space. In the other options, the A and B, we're trying to renovate a school that basically needs an entire facelift. It's a gut renovation. So why not make one of these schemes a renovation of the gym, the field house, and the adjacent space, and build the rest of it new? It could even be a shorter duration of a project that takes down the entire building and then reconstructs the entire educational building in place in the best site. But it comes at a cost of the disruption for 2 to 3 years and the cost of the modulars. So
Yeah,
but is it better than going through all of that and then coming out at the other end with a renovated building scheme, not as good or as tailor-made as a brand new building with a renovated gym attached? I hope that's not too much to take in all at once, but.
No, so that's a new diagram that basically moves the kids off the school to a modular and just rebuilds the brand new school right where it is, but leaves the field house.
Right.
And we don't have a diagram on that. And I think that's a damn good idea.
And that would be phased construction.
Well, not only would it be phased construction, you'd be taking kids. To me, I don't think we can put an option together that takes 2 or 3 grades and puts them in trailers on Walsh Field or somewhere else for 2 to 3 years. I think that's COVID's been bad enough. Never mind now taking kids and I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get enough modulars to do it in a cohesive way and keep your extracurriculars and your theater and everything else going. I mean, that seems to me to be, and I think the cost to do that would be crazy, as you've shown. So that if you're doing that, do it on Beasley, do it on Walsh, and then you're talking about an athletic field. That's basically what you're saying is just, we've already got schemes that build new schools.
But the existing location, Chip, is a pretty good location. And then you don't have to really disturb too much of the other stuff around there. I get you. I don't know if it's going to take 3 years. I don't know if you're going to misplace 9th grade for 3 years. You might start with
close.
inspection of the school, right? Maybe it's half of a year or three
Oh,
quarters.
God, no, it'd be at least two.
Yeah, it'll be multiple moves in and out of various grades, I think, over 3 years. So 9th might come out 1 year and 10th will come out the next year as we sort of build
What
that.
if you're talking about phase destruction?
I think so, right? Because you gotta demolish, was it 200,000
How
square
could
feet
the, I
and
mean,
replace it?
the idea of logistics on that idea, and although Brian, I appreciate the creativity, I think the logistics are nightmarish.
And not only that, but I mean, we don't have the time, if we're gonna be in front of the
Yeah,
MSBA
that's true. That's true.
on February 2nd to come up with a whole brand new design.
All right, forget that idea.
I think Janine has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Janine.
Just a quick comment and then a question. I think the thing about 2C is just for 3 million more, you basically are getting a brand new building. I think that's a factor that makes me like 2C better. And also question, how hard is it going to be to move Hemlock? Is that something we think is a probable, or is that a real obstacle?
We have to go through the DCR to do it, Janine.
Okay.
So, you know, we're hopeful.
All right.
But I mean, is there a guarantee? Nope.
Yeah.
No, but Joe, when we first started this process and started looking at it, I think Rick Stinson back then went, and they know how bad the intersection is. Because TAC, Traffic Advisory Committee, has labeled this as one of the worst intersections in town. So
Yeah.
to improve that, I think DCR would be fine.
Yeah, I just
I
don't see
don't-
I don't see the
But if
negative
you
in
don't,
moving it.
I can't guarantee that.
Right.
No, you can't guarantee it, but
Right.
it's probable.
If it was a town road, no problem,
Right,
but it's not.
yeah. But I just don't see any, I don't see any reason why somebody would object to it, but
Yeah, but that's politics.
That's probably, yeah, that's enough reason right there, Janine.
okay, all right. All right, thanks.
Just a quick question on the bridge. Does that mean it would be an elevator on either end of that for handicap access?
Yes, there'd be an elevator on the gym
Both-
end and
both
an
ends?
elevator in the building somewhere
Yeah.
nearby.
Well, that's going to be high use.
Well, it would be mainly reserved for, disability use. There'd be stairwells also, which would be the primary means of circulation. So imagine a stair tower on the gym end and an internal stair nearby inside the building.
All right.
I'll just note again for all the schemes on Walshfield, the limited ability to get off of Farm Street before you're turning into the driveway. And as this backs up, this is a challenge for us in terms of the site design. It's true for all 5 of those options.
Jonathan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just a couple of comments just in terms of thinking about sort of process. One is, I think, as we think about eliminating more options, I would probably start with trying to eliminate, one of the options that are similar to the others. So you have 2A and 2B that are really similar, 3B and 3C that are really similar, 4B and 4C. I wonder, before we make a decision on 2A/B versus C, if there's some narrowing down of those options that are not dissimilar, just to try to get a sense as to where those go. With all of that said, I know Eric had suggested earlier, looking at weighting of the criteria maybe as a first step. I do actually think that would be helpful as well before we get too much in the details of some of these more specific things. I think that maybe would give us a little bit more of a handle on how to use the framework in such a way to try to narrow these down, as we get to sort of, some of the more marginal differences between some of the plans.
Jonathan, I agree. I think you could go back and, you know, decide on 2A or 2B and 3A, you know, 3A or 3B and C, and, you know, and end up with 4. End up with 2 renovations, 1 new on Beasley, 1 new on Walsh. And then kind of move forward to that and either go forward with those 4 or, you know, at our 27th meeting, we look at it and see how comfortable we all are having had some time to contemplate them.
Helen, yeah, that's the next question I have. Helen?
Yep.
We've eliminated some.
Yes.
Does it make sense for us to go back and as members of the committees to take a look at all of these again and come back on the 27th and give you the 4 options? Is that feasible, or what are your thoughts?
We definitely could. I think we probably should get a PDF of the large version of all of these. I also wonder though, is it possible to get rid of as Jonathan had just suggested, or if we don't have enough information, we could certainly do it on the 27th. I think moving forward with 4 options, if we're not ready to get rid of 2C, in other words, retain 2 ad renos and 2 news, plus the one we have to carry regardless, would be a good result.
One of the things we contemplated, because we, you know, whether we were able to finish this tonight, was to meet next Thursday on the 20th, rather than have the public forum. What are people's
Well,
thoughts?
we could also meet on Tuesday and still have the public forum.
Oh, are we nowhere close to try to just settle something tonight, since we've been talking about it? Or do people
I'd
feel
like
they
to
need,
keep going myself.
do people feel they need,
That's
like,
what
I feel like a week's gonna
trying to
go by and I may not look at this again until the 20th, depending on my work day. So like, I feel like warmed up to make a decision tonight, but that's just me.
I think let's see if we can do it. I mean,
And
let's
we've
take
got a
another
little
half
bit-
hour and see where we end up.
Back to Jonathan's comments. So 3B and 3C are essentially the same, right? They're just mirrored.
The gym is flipping from north
Right.
to south. Oops, sorry. So, and I'm not sure that that's even, significant in the scheme of things, meaning you want to select a three series option, right? And in the next round, we can look at studies of the gym here, the gym there. We're not locked into a particular arrangement of program within this option when we go to PSR. So we can look at gym over here, gym over there. The difference in my eyes here between the two is 3C has the gym more central to the fields on the left. 3B has the gym on the north side on the right, which is still directly adjacent to Beasley Oval, has visual surveying of the field, but it's less prominent when you come in the entry to the school.
Where's the auditorium in 3C?
Is in the lower right quadrant.
And in B?
I'm sorry, in C, it's in the lower left.
See, to me, in this one has parking adjacent to the gym and the auditorium.
Yep.
Which I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
In the next one, it doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
So to me, if I was weighing, and I
Again,
think, like Brian said, we can certainly massage it and look further at it. But to me, if we were to pick one, I'd go the other one, and then I'd go with that one.
All right, how's everybody feel about going with 3B rather than 3C?
I'm with 3B.
I like 3B.
3B.
Anybody object to 3B?
No.
3B it is.
And then can we do the same with 4? With the
So
two 4s?
4B is trying to incorporate somewhat of a larger gesture of the overall site to have it feel like a campus, similar to what we showed you in the interview, and inflecting the building to be part of that sort of conversation, if you will. The difficulty here is, again, Hemlock, and the notion that as soon as you come in on Hemlock off of Farm, you're immediately turning into a drop-off, and it's pretty constricted here. And I think, if anything, that's the sort of challenge of this particular scheme. This option has the auditorium along Farm Street and has the academic wings sort of straddling. They're not adjacent. So you're crossing through probably a common double high dining common space and maybe the media center up top to get from humanities to STEM and vice versa. So, you know, again, the fingers coming out, the pods are malleable. We can move those around, but the way they're shown in the scheme here is auditorium more inboard and the two academic wings toward Farm Street. The bigger difference here is we've elongated the building and the oval. Now we've had feedback in the site focus group meeting about, well, what's in that middle of the oval? We can program that with either you know, some outdoor classrooms or you know, maybe a little parking, could be some of the athletic program. And the concept here is that the two-way Hemlock is going to the right side of the oval. On the left side is a one-way drop-off in front of the school. It's still fairly tight, I would say, for the building, but it gives us the longer runway for drop-off. This is about 500 feet long. It gives you, oops, sorry, it's not over. It gives you a better chance of making it work. So I think this is a slightly stronger scheme from that point of view.
What do people think about 4C versus 4B?
Yeah, I would just, you know, maybe flip flop the auditorium, gym, little things like that based on.
Back to there.
You know, based on the square, but I like the bigger oval.
I like the bigger oval too. And I'm concerned
me too.
about the driving, because the drop off for Woodville then on 4B, would that actually go through that campus, right in the middle of that campus then, all the way around? Between Beasley Oval and Walsh Field?
The idea is after the drop off, yes, you'd continue straight and you come
Well,
out.
not just that, but for Woodville, the Woodville school
Woodville.
also.
Does Woodville happen in the parking lot where the cars are parked in front of the school or on the side of the school right now?
No, right
In
now it
front of
goes
the
right in
school.
front of the high, right now it goes right in front of the high school, which, because there's a long line of cars. So I don't know if that would end up using,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is Farm Street gonna back up
Comes
because
in
of the
and
high school
back.
backing
it
up?
would never
Probably.
work that way. Yeah, it well, hasn't been working that way. I think,
So we can look at that. That's not,
but I think
and an
4C would
area of-
accommodate it better.
All right, Eric, you had your hand up?
Yeah, actually, with the 4B scheme, I was wondering if you couldn't change the direction of the traffic and have people pull in over to the right, come across and line up and come across the big oval. Because then when they exit, it would be, you know, you're not backed up traffic.
yeah, a couple of things with that, and
Hemlock.
again, invite Aaron to jump in on.
I'm gonna jump in, actually. I don't know if there's anyone who appreciates this conversation more than me tonight. I cannot wait to get into these issues, but I would hate to belabor the debate about options this evening, solely based on these diagrams that we're talking about. You know, these designs will come a long way, like the site and the building both will. And so I think we should maybe take a step back from the circulation. I am getting excited, but you know, if we can focus a bit on maybe bigger picture of where we're thinking about the building and what that might mean for some of the bigger picture criteria that we kind of started with tonight. And hold your excitement until we can really dig into those issues.
I'll try to hold my excitement here.
I really appreciate it.
It's quite all right.
But it does sound like we're proceeding with a 4 series scheme as part of the portfolio here.
Yeah, Phil, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just about to say, forget the 4 series. I have a real issue with Walsh Field up front. If you're coming in from Water Street, you're going to have these huge baseball nets, which I assume are going to be on either side of the foul line, blocking the view of the school. On a curb appeal, you have the long, tall fences for the tennis courts. You have the nets from the ball field. It's taking away from this whole brand new project. I know there's only certain ways you can move these pieces around, but I don't know. I just have a general design and visual issue with the 4s because of the Walsh Field up front and everything that goes along with having those facilities that you need, you know, to have a baseball field to keep it safe. You need to have certain things. So I'm just thinking about stupid things like that because outside of that, what should go in the middle of the oval is a bronze statue of Joe Bertrand, of course. Like we all know that that is the answer to that question. Yeah.
Now you're talking, Phil.
It's interesting, Phil. Before tonight, I was fully vetted in that we should build this thing nowhere other than the Walsh Field. And after like really thinking about it and really thinking the criteria, I think I've shifted to the Beasley Oval. Yeah. To the 3 series, which I find surprising in my thought. Because it does have a little, even though you're looking over the new oval, you still have a presence to Farm Street. It's deeper, but it's still present. And it gives us some of the same options. And quite frankly, I think if we do a whole lot more of test borings on Walsh, we're going to find out it's a miserable option to build on.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chip.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm ready to eliminate the whole 4 series, but I'm certainly more towards the 3 series. And certainly as you then start, as Erin mentioned, you know, don't get into the minutia, but then start looking at parking and adjacencies and stuff like that in that series. And to Phil's point, you know, the Walsh Field and the screening and, you know, it's in a good spot right now along Hemlock Road, adjacent to Landrigan and the tennis courts. You know, the Beasley Oval, if you were ever to have outside graduation again or something like that, it'd be right adjacent to the school. I mean, there's some nice continuity and some pretty good adjacencies. So I've kind of moved to the 3 series, which I find shocking to myself. That's my soapbox for now.
Okay. How about on the 4s? How do we wish to make a selection though between 4B and 4C? Or just not do it and go to the Beasley Oval?
I mean, to me, I'm to the Beasley Oval. I think the parking, to Eric's point on the parking and adjacencies and drop off and all of that is difficult on the 4 series.
Doug?
Yeah, I was just curious. Chip, you made a comment that I think the more we look at Walsh, the more it may be a miserable site to build on. Do you think, is that due to water, Chip?
Yeah, so probably 7 years ago, God, time flies, it might even be longer. Rick Stinson dug up Walsh Field and had to put a whole series of drainage under it so that it actually became a playable field. I'm not sure that at some point a river didn't run through there.
It does.
Or it currently does. So there's all sorts of drainage infrastructure already under the Walsh Field. So that was my comment a while ago about how we only had 4 test pits on that area.
Yeah.
And that wasn't enough, but separate of that, I'm just not seeing good traffic flow. And even to Erin's point, don't get worried about the minutia, but it just doesn't feel like a good traffic flow to me. The dropping it back deeper in the site, looking over a nice turf track close to the road with some nice parking along it seems like a better fit for me. Just starting to feel about it.
What's interesting about the 3 Series and 3B or building on Beasley is that Woodville would also use Beasley more as it's built closer to the school. One of the challenges.
Interesting.
Well, one of the challenges that they have now in terms of using Beasley is getting all the kids, getting little guys lined up and moved down there. It's a little bit of a trick. I know it sounds funny, but anyway.
And Doug, to your point, some of the additional detail that we've added since last you've seen these diagrams has to do with the pedestrian realm and the light sort of beige areas that lead back to Farm Street, which in the interview we had, some desire lines and a wrap that tied it together, and we can actually do that and even fan out toward Woodville more or toward Walsh Field more and make it feel even more like a campus. I think the building in this location for me feels like it commands the site. And to Chip's point, I think we can actually tune the architecture to the distance from Farm Street. So the scale of it is appropriate and it makes the right gesture. And it's got all kinds of space to sort of reach out to here that just feels more workable than what we just saw in the 4 Series.
The only other comment that I have, and I'll stop talking, is this in the 4 Series, the curb appeal, and think about the homes across the street on Farm that are going to be, with the, baseball netting, and just kind of, it's just a little bit difficult to imagine. And maybe architecturally, maybe I'm just not seeing how great it could look, because I'm thinking that it could be a difficult look. But thank you.
Jonathan, you had a question?
Just a comment. I mean, if I were forced to pick an option 4, I'd probably go with C versus B, just given the placement of the auditorium, the larger drop off. But I agree with Chip that I think if I were thinking about this from a site placement perspective overall, the whole site just feels more cohesive if you have the building on Beasley Oval. Just the adjacencies of the building to the fields, the curb appeal from the street, the circulation, looking at it on paper now and kind of, seeing these options kind of get vetted out over the last, couple of months. I do feel that, the 3 Series is a better set of options than the 4 Series. And so as we think about kind of eliminating options, certainly if the sense of the group was that we were looking at 3 versus 4, I'm comfortable with that. If we felt there was a reason why we wanted to keep one of the 4s in contention, I get that as well. I just probably have a preference for C over B in that case.
Janine?
Yeah, I too was originally been leaning towards Walsh, but I really switched looking at it tonight and after a couple site meetings. I think the whole layout looks more balanced also. You got, you're more surrounded by fields, and I like the idea of the lower Beasley out front. And also, if the building is going to be taller, we're used to a 2-story building. This is possibly a 3-story and maybe even a 4-story someday. You further back from the road won't feel so towering over the neighborhood. I think we definitely would balance it better. So I'm definitely in favor of the 3 Series.
Thanks, Janine. Eric?
Yeah, I'm echoing a lot of what's being said about 3 versus 4. And Gene, thank you for making the point about the height of the building, because that was kind of the point I was going to make. This Beasley is a lower portion of the site, And so my assumption is that from the front, it's going to appear like a 1 or a 2-story building, but obviously the 3 or 4 stories will be visible from the back. And we just haven't talked much about that, but just wanted to confirm that will be the case, and just to make that point. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is, I don't know how serious we're going to end up being about the 30,000 square foot gym, but do any of these schemes prohibit that?
Which one? The threes?
Any of the schemes?
Brian, does any of the threes prohibit the 30,000 square foot field house?
Of 3B and 3C, no, we can make it work.
And the fours do as well, correct?
They do. It's again going to make the building even more constrained, I would say.
Do they fit better in the threes than they do in the fours?
Sure. Yes.
I mean, to me, Joe, and I had been a strong proponent again for Walsh, and the more I look at this picture right here, and I'll debate whether the auditorium goes in the back and the front and the gym in the back, I'm not too concerned about that. I'm looking at the orange, the gray, and the green fields, and this feels right to me. Which then, given that, the 2A or B feels right, 2C doesn't, because again, that goes over on Walsh, a bridge, the adjacencies aren't great.
Yeah.
So I think we could, in my opinion, if we don't even get hung up on 3B or C, just to pick one, because then you get more into the details. If we pick 3 as our brand new, pick a 2, A or B, eliminate C, and 1, that gives us 3 very good option. Well, 1's not an option, but we get a good reno option and we get a good new option. Then we start massaging what wing is what and going from there. Am I thinking it the right way, Brian?
I think you are.
Helen, Lorraine, everybody can jump in and beat me up if they want.
It's too late in the night to do that, Chip.
There's a bit of fatigue.
Yes.
To me, it's amazing to watch a committee kind of this is an iterative process, right? And it's taken us all so much time to massage it, look at it again, massage it, look at it again, and watch you all kind of debate the merits of what we're putting out here. And it's great. We really,
Well,
we're
Helen,
excited.
can we do what Chip indicated? Just give a 3, a 2, and the 1?
I don't see why not.
All
Shane?
right.
Yeah, that's the minimum we have to do. So yeah, we can do the base, add reno and a new.
Right. Does anybody have any issues with not going further with any of the construction on Walsh Field? I'm not hearing anything.
So I have a very quick question. Is there anything, Brian, this is for you, is there anything in regard to the design in the 3 series that would preclude us from getting what we want in regard to the educational plan where we should look or consider 4?
No.
Thank you.
So do you have any problem now, Doug?
I don't, Joe.
No, Doug, I actually think, and again, we can massage the square footage. The ability to put the 3 series into play gives us more flexibility and more. I mean, look at this green space between the left side to Hemlock Road. Not that it's a ton, but there's places to massage. When you go on Walsh, there's not a whole lot of place to massage.
So, looking at the ones that, but on the 3B, I think everybody thought that was better with the way it looked with the gym and the auditorium near the parking. Is that correct?
Yes.
If you have to pick one now, yeah.
Yeah, if you have to pick one now, it would be 3B. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Any problems with that? Hearing none. All right, 2A and 2B, do we have any preferences? If we could, Brian, if you could put those up. I like 2A myself. 'Cause
It was closer to the interview scheme.
It's closer to the original presentation, and I always liked that presentation was,
If you could imagine taking this little notch right here and carving it back, so it's more of a kind of sweeping curve, you'd have the form that's in that presentation. And
yeah.
maybe this is more slender in the middle, but we had sort of a V type wedge here.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could create that with the volumes. Now, we're going to get into a lot of detail in terms of the ad reno and how the spaces really lay out, which we've done in a cursory way here. So I would just say that this can evolve quite a bit when we start. I mean, the idea is it's an ad reno, and we're trying to take advantage of some building and building in the courtyard. But the pieces are maneuverable, I would say.
Can I ask one thing, Brian?
Sure.
Looking at 2A, is the present location of WCAT unchanged?
Yes, I believe it's this space right here.
Right there? Yeah. Okay.
But Joe, that, it's blocks, so if that was important, we could make that a criteria when they get to the next level.
Right, but I'm just saying.
Right now, it appears that it
It's
hasn't
there.
changed.
Yeah, right. That's why I asked that.
And it's going to be got renovated. So, I mean, presumably, if that's if that's called for.
If it's not,
you could leave it alone. You could leave
Thank
this
you.
block as is and deal with around it.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Does anybody have any objections or any preferences to 2B versus 2A? Eric.
My point is actually about the 3 series, but we can answer your question right now first.
I'm good with 2A.
I like 2A.
Anybody have any problems with 2A versus 2B? All right, let's go with 2A. Eric, you wanted a question about 3?
Yeah, just if we could just quickly look at 3B and 3C. The only merit, I think, well, one merit to 3C is having the gym on the left-hand side does put it closer to all the athletic facilities, which I know, as the athletes, come out of the gym would be, easier. So the solution may be, can we get more parking to the left side of the school in order to keep the gym sort of where it makes more sense?
Isn't the problem with that though, that there's a ledge there and the height and all that?
There's a grade change here. There's some fairly steep slope, but the scheme has a driveway. So the assumption is there's a retaining wall here.
Yeah.
For some length, and then you're flat below it. So if we took the whole building, we moved it over into this parking space, parking area, you would create the space for the parking on this side.
Yeah, I think it's important to just remember that we're going to massage this.
Yes.
And vet it many different ways, because you're now walking through the whole school to get to the auditorium. So should you take both academic wings, and should they be back where the audit, there's lots of things to discuss. I think it's just important that the orange is orange at this point.
The challenge for the architect here is to take a gym, which is kind of a big box, and to make it presentable as you approach the building and come into the entry.
So I
Not
think
that we
it has to be
can't
on
do
the
that.
back side of any of these buildings.
All right, Janine, do you have your hand up?
I was concerned about the auditorium being in the back and once again, without any parking. And then Chip mentioned it also how you had to walk all the way through the building. So I think that's something that will, along with the gym, would be something that would may need public access or good public.
Yeah, that's why 3B, you mean 3 on 3B?
Or 3C, it was on the left-hand side. I didn't like it on the left-hand side, but
Yeah,
away
right.
from the parking also.
Is there anything else? So are we set? The 3 what we're looking at right now is obviously 1, 2A, and 3B. Is that correct?
I believe so. It's, yeah, I have.
Does the committee need to vote, Shane? I don't know if that's a
They may vote if they wish. We need to vote to submit the PDP in which these options will be
We're not voting on the
recommended.
PDP. Nobody's read that. I got a thing like at 4 o'clock.
Right. No, but we're not looking for a vote, not for 2 weeks.
Right. So I think when we vote, we would vote on the whole PDP presentation. But it certainly sounds like there's no argument or no discussion that we're not going in a adhered right direction.
1, 2A, 3B.
Yep.
Yep.
Any people have any problem with that right now? Speak up or forever hold your peace. I now pronounce you, but oh no. All right. Any other? Is there anything else? And I hope not.
For the PDP, are you going to just present what you've got now, or are you going to massage it a little bit?
So we sent out a draft this afternoon.
I'm talking about the design, Shane.
Oh,
Keep going.
yeah, they'll keep progressing a little bit further.
You're gonna massage it a little bit, Brian?
Yes, and we'll show you again in 2 weeks.
Okay. And what sort of things are you thinking about? I just want to make sure that we're not sending you in a direction that doesn't make sense.
Sure. Nothing earth shattering. I think it's really just sort of getting more consistency among the diagrams and getting them all to read well in terms of, like one of you said, I'm not sure exactly whom, the orange of the building, the green and the gray, that they read well as diagrams.
Okay. The only thing I would think of is as I've heard comments from Janine and Eric and other people, think about the parking, think about the auditorium as being more of a public space than maybe the gyms.
Yeah.
You had mentioned from an architectural standpoint, it might be more fun to have the auditorium as a highlight than a big wall of a gym. So maybe
Auditorium has a similar challenge, actually.
What?
Auditorium has a similar challenge.
Yeah, but you can do some pylons and some entrances, and you can make it kind of nice. But so I just think about those adjacents. I think about Eric's parking comments, that we do want parking near the auditorium, near the gym. However, I would think about possibly, the gym being closer to Landrigan, the tennis courts, Walsh might make sense. And how some of that could be flip-flopped again with parking. So, but not quite like maybe towards the back or something. So it's not.
Yeah.
So I think the auditorium needs to be closer to the front. We have a great opportunity at the Galvin where we have a separate entrance, almost, even though it's into the Galvin. You can close down the rest of the school and just have the auditorium open within about 30 feet.
Right.
And that works really well for public situations because you're not staffing the entire building to get people to the auditorium or having to clean the entire building after you've traipsed mud and snow through hallways. for a night event. So those are the things I would challenge you with.
Chief Sullivan.
I just want to make a comment that we should make sure that there's adequate access to the gym and the auditorium for emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a couple other really quick comments, that I'm not hung up on a road going all the way around the school. I heard that mentioned earlier. All I ask for is as much access as you can give me. If I'm not expecting to be able to drive 360 around the school.
Okay.
And also we dropped all we dropped all the options on the bridge, which is good, because I was afraid I was going to get blamed for whether it was a bridge or not. And
You just have to have the ladder down when you go under, Chief. That's all. They can't drive around with it up.
I just want to make sure that, I want to make sure we can fit under it. That's all I'm looking for.
Mike, I was going to blame you, but that's okay now.
Yeah,
You can still make a bridge.
Yeah, we can still make a bridge for you. Bridge to nowhere.
And the other thing is, I just want to confirm that we haven't abandoned the idea of realigning Hemlock Road, because I think that that's definitely a good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I was afraid.
Oh, no.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's all I got.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Does anybody have anything else? I'd like to thank everybody for a very productive 2.5 hours.
Just so Joe, next meeting and next week, do we want to
forum?
Go ahead, we'll do the public forum, we'll present these options, we'll let folks know what the committee has discussed, let them know there'll be a formal vote taken on the 26th, I think.
27th.
All right, so we'll put together a presentation for that next week.
Anybody have anything else?
About what, Joe? Anything else in the world or does high school?
Well, no, Phil, I mean, I really am not going to get into your personal. Oh, no.
I have two permanent building committee matters, but I just want the Greenwood roof MSBA closeout. Per the last update in April of 21, there was supposed to be a final walkthrough in August, and then they said it was going to be closed out by the end of summer. This is PMA. I believe we've paid them in full through closeout. So I just want to make sure that closeout has happened, that thing's not just hanging out in the open.
There was one more piece of paper that has to go through the MSBA. They sent me something about a month ago, and they anticipated that it would probably take 2 months for the MSBA to do the final sign off.
Great, thank you. And the second thing is, can we get some sort of update at our next regular meeting on where we are at the DPW? I know we have a lot on the plate, but that is another project we were charged with. We had some serious questions. They were supposed to get back to us. So now it's been almost 4 months again. So I don't know what the heat is on that project, but something we should keep moving along if we can, and just be interested in what the update is.
I have asked for it and I have not received any updates. So I don't know if they were ready to make any presentations.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Anybody, anything else? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Move that we adjourn.
Good night.
Move to
Thanks,
adjourn.
Joe.
Great night, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great ideas.